Hey guys, in this lecture we are going to learn about the HTTP status codes. So what are status codes? So every time you make a request, whether it be get, put, post, delete, anything, the server sends a status code which represents what kind of response it has been done. Alright, so there are multiple status codes, but all of them are categorized into 5 parts. And how can we learn about them? So here are they. So the code that anything starts with 1 is informational, and anything that starts with 2 is success. Any code that starts with 3 is a redirection request, and anything that starts with 4 is a client error, and anything which starts with 5 is a server error. Alright, and the last two, the client error and server error, can be handled using error handler provided by the Flask, but everything else is some kind of information, success and redirection from the server. Alright, so what else we can learn from them? Alright, there are some status codes that are very common in everyday web application processes using the internet, so learn about them. Alright, so here are they. So the status code 200 indicates the server is saying OK, and 201 is created, which means some kind of information has been created, or you can say a database record has been created. 302 is some kind of found, which means you have searched for some data and you have found it. Code 400 is a bad request, which is like in the previous lecture we have seen. So if you make a post request on a method that hasn't been allowed to make a post request, you get bad request. 401 is unauthorized, so you access some page on the website which you are not allowed to access unless you logged into the website. That is an unauthorized. 404 is not found, which means you try to access a web page that hasn't been existing in the internet or else on the server side, then it is called a not found. 405 is a method not allowed. Alright, 500 is an internal server. This is the server that is caused on the server side. Alright, we don't have to deal much with it, but it is a server error which has to be handled by the web application developer. Alright, so these are some important status codes that we seem to come across in daily application development process. So with this in mind, let's go ahead and learn about how to actually use them, how to identify what kind of request that we are getting. So let's get ahead into the practical side of it. Alright, this part of the application is what we have developed when we are actually learning about the database. So here what we are going to do is we are going to access the cursor and we are going to fetch some data, and we are going to print the data the first user in our database. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to our terminal. Our server is running. Go back here, and if you refresh it, you can see the result. Alright, now come back here to the terminal. You can actually see the 200. This is what the request actually sends as a status code, because we have got the request that we have performed. It says 200. Alright, so let's modify our code so that we can actually match with something else, so that we can actually get as we can see another request being handled. So here is my server. My cursor is ready. So I'm going to execute some codes here, dot execute, and inside it I'm going to say insert into user, and the field will be username, and here values, and here we're going to suppose, no, let's just say I'm going to put something like what else we could say for the name, let's say Richard. Alright, now after this, come down here, wait, we need to give a colon, and now say mysql dot connection dot commit. Alright, after this I would say return and give it a success message, and also we can send the code that we want, 201. So by this we're going to learn what kind of status code it is sending. Run the server and come back here. Now refresh it. You can see success being sent, and if you come down here you can actually see 201 being sent. Right, so in this way you can actually say that our request has been performed as we want. Alright, So in this manner we can determine what kind of status codes are being sent. Alright, so if you actually go and say access the about page, it's going to say not found, because we have no about method being handled, no about root access. Alright, so what are we going to do here is we're going to actually make sure that we handle these kinds of errors. As I have said, Flask provides some error handling. So at app.error handler of 404, and now say def page not found, and E is the message that we're actually getting in the web browser right now. So now we are going to replace it with this page was not found. Now save this thing, back here, refresh it. Yeah, the server is running. Now if you come back here and refresh it, you can see the message that we are actually displaying. So we can actually handle what message we can show when the page does not exist. Alright, so in this way we can actually learn about status code, so we can determine what has actually happened on the server side or the client side, what error has occurred, how to handle an error, how to actually make sure that everything that is being performed on the communication aspect of the client and server is under our control. Alright, this is a major thing that you need to learn, because if you want to learn about how to develop apps, web apps in particular, and you are going to actually handle the server side, you need to know about the status codes and the HTTP verbs. Right? So with that in mind, let's get to the next lecture.